Hi, welcome back to this series of videos on Ind AS, that is Ind AS with Accountsman. In the previous lecture we were discussing Ind AS 7, that is statement of cash flow, and this lecture is continuation of the previous lecture from where we left there. We were discussing how and we were discussing why, and we discussed few items in detail, that is bank overdraft, interest and dividend, tax and asset. So one other important item that was not discussed yesterday, which was kept aside for today's discussion, is foreign exchange. Yeah, we have a separate standard to discuss foreign exchanges. We'll discuss it there, and there's a major change also in regard to AS 11 and the present Ind AS, because then we used to call it reporting currency and the foreign currency. Now we call it functional currency. So if the organization is in India, Indian currency is the functional currency, and every currency other than Indian currency will become the foreign currency. So if I have certain foreign currency because of me being selling the goods to a country outside India, or if I have certain person to whom I am supposed to pay money who's in the foreign currency, so I purchase some foreign currency and kept. This particular foreign currency, whatever I have with me in the organization, is definitely part of my cash. You get that? So Indian currency, foreign currency, even though there is no Gandhi on it, no, it is still cash all by itself. You get that? So it's part of our cash and cash equivalent. But how do we treat this, or how do we arrive at the foreign currency in the functional currency? Because entire financial statement should be prepared in the functional currency, that is what we call as reporting currency or rupees. So we need to apply the exchange rate as on date of financial statements. You need to restate it to the date of financial statements. It would lead to an important aspect called as unrealized gains. What exactly do we mean by unrealized gains? Assume that I have dollar hundreds, yeah, which I had bought when it was rupees 60 per dollar. You get that? But on the closing date, this is some date during the year. On the closing date, what has happened? It has become rupees 65 per dollar, and I have the same $100. Then what would happen? Same $100, the rate has increased. Now suddenly my cash has increased. Now this is gain, but have I realized it? Actually not. I have not realized it. So this is unrealized gain. We need to go by conservatism concept or our prudence concept, and this income will not be recorded in our statement of profit or loss for sure. But when we take closing cash and cash equivalent in cash flow statement, we would be taking at 65 rupees. That would lead to mismatch of our what? So we would be taking at 65 rupees. When we take that, then what would happen? That would lead to mismatch of our cash flow statement or statement of cash flow. Then such amount of difference should be reconciled. Reconciliation has to be done. How do we do reconciliation? Add unrealized gain to opening cash and cash equivalent. You get that? Pretty simple. So this is going to become very handy to you when you start solving the problem. Right now you might not make much sense of this. Understand the entire theory what is discussed. Start solving the problems from our ICI Institute material. You will definitely find this very handy. So what do we do? If there is any fluctuation in the forex rates which is creating unrealized gain, don't worry. Add that unrealized gain to opening cash and cash equivalent and restate your closing cash and cash equivalent at the revised value, that is at the closing rate. Then your entire cash flow statement will automatically tally and it will be reconciled. So this is a very important adjustment, and there can be definite question on this usually in the exam. So if there is a question on Ind AS, it can either be on this adjustment, little tricky, or one we discussed previously. I'll touch upon that point once again at the end, telling you what is the important parts in this particular standard. So this is with regard to the important part in our Ind AS 7. Next, we discussed what, we discussed why. Then next question that we need to discuss is when and how. So let us firstly discuss how, because when is a very simple question. How exactly do we prepare this cash flow statement? I told you previously also that how will be discussion little later, so I had mentioned it here. Yeah, how statement can be prepared under two methods. Yeah, statement can be prepared, statement of cash flow can be basically prepared under two methods, that is direct method and indirect method. Direct method and indirect method. Yeah, direct method is nothing very new. It's like what is a different presentation of our cash book. What is it? It's not anything different. There is a cash book, it will have, what do you say, receipts, it will have payments. That receipts I'll put them into three categories. What will I do? Operating, investing, financing. And all the payments what are there, I'll basically categorize them also into three categories: operating, investing, financing. I'll write all the operating items, that is receipts as well as payments, at one place. I'll write all the financing items, that is receipts as well as payments, and I'll write all the investing, receipts as well as payments, at one place. I'll categorize them and write them in the columnar manner. That will become my direct method. Whereas indirect method is little different. However, I told you previously there are three items, isn't it? Operating activities, investing activities, financing activities. So here also I'll write OA, IA, FA. Yeah, what we note here is investing activities, the way we compute cash flow from investing activities under direct method, indirect method, both are same. The way we compute cash flow from financing activities under direct method, indirect method is same. So the only point of difference is with respect to operating activity. The way we compute operating activities cash flow under direct method, the way we compute operating activities cash flow under indirect method is different. So if we understand only this part, then rest two will be simple. Rest two will be same. So these two are just different way of presenting our cash book. We'll write all the receipt from investing activity, subtract all the outflows from investing activity. That will give us cash flow from investing activity. We'll write all the inflows from financing activity. We'll write all the outflows from financing activity. Then we'll arrive at cash flow from financing activity. Inflows refer to receipts, outflows refers to payment. So that's a very easy point. Now we'll try to focus on this word indirect. Yeah, I'll explain this to you with the help of understanding our financial statements. So come on, let us go ahead. When we talk about financial statements, we have trading and PL. Yes, I hope you got my point, whatever I'm trying to tell here. Next we'll have balance sheet. You get that? Assets would come here, liabilities would come here, and here my net profit comes here. You get that? And here will be all the expenses, here will be all the incomes. Yes, so that's our point of discussion. So this is the basic understanding. I am not writing the vertical one, I am writing the horizontal one because this is just for our sake of understanding. Now if I tell you this entire assets whatever is there is basically my investing activity, am I right? And whatever liabilities I am writing here is basically financing activity. Liabilities will include our share capitals, equity, loans, borrowings and everything. Assets will include purchase and sale of assets. That's my investing activity. And can I tell my entire entire trading and P&L, whatever I am doing here is basically my operating activity. That's in the course of operations, isn't it? So all the assets, purchase and sale will come in my investing. All the liabilities, financing activity will come in my financing, and this expenses and incomes together, trading and P&L items, will come in my operating. So instead of taking my cash book and identifying cash inflows, cash outflows from operating activity, why can't I, cash inflows means incomes, cash outflows means expense, why can't I straight away take my net profit as cash flow from operating activity? So can I say net profit is equal to cash flow from operating activity? Can I make this statement? Actually, I cannot. Why? There are few items which are there in our net profit which are not part of our cash flow from operating activities. What are they? There might be few expenses here which are not cash. There might be few expenses here which are not operating. Similarly, few incomes which are not cash incomes. Few incomes which are not operating incomes. You get that? So there might be investing, there might be dividend received. It will become investing income, but it is wrongly part of our net profit. So what do we do under this specific statement is, under the direct method, what we do is we start with net profit, we add back non-operating and non-cash expenses, and we'll also subtract non-operating, or this is not and, basically we can write this as or. Yeah, this is again or, non-operating or non-cash incomes, both which are in P&L. You get that? So when we do this, we'll start getting cash flow from operating activities. However, Another important point what we forgotten here is these assets will include non-current assets as well as current assets. These liabilities will include non-current liabilities and current liabilities. These current liabilities, whatever we have, and current assets, whatever we have, these are basically operating activity items. Why? In our trading account, we'll have purchase, sale, and everything. So those will again denote our operating activities. We can't take purchase, sale here because there might be credit purchase and credit sales. So what we do is, after we write this specific direct cash flow identified as net profit plus non-operating or non-cash expenses minus non-operating and non-cash incomes, we basically add or subtract for changes in what is say working capital. Working capital basically means what? Our current assets minus current liabilities. How do we do these changes in working capital? Simple. It is difference between current assets and current liabilities. If I have to tell you the straight away shortcut, with respect to current assets, we should do opening minus closing. With respect to current liabilities, we should do closing minus opening. Yeah. Because this is a revision lecture, I am not diving deep into it and then explaining the logic. If you want me to tell it in the span of a minute, I'll tell you. See, if there is a current asset increase, what would happen? Meaning you are buying stock. When you buy the stock and there is increase in the current asset, you would have to shell out cash. So the cash is decreasing. You get that? So there is increase. So closing is more, opening is less. So it is minus. So we do opening minus closing. Assume that there is a current liability like creditors. You paid cash. So when you pay cash, what will happen? The cash will decrease. So when the closing is more and opening is less, it should be deducted. So we do closing minus opening. Or the simple logic will be current liability will take CL is current liability. So CL is closing. CL minus OP. If we do current assets, we should do opening minus closing. A is the first letter. So the opening letter. OP minus CL. Opening minus closing. That's what we do. From this, we basically subtract the actual tax paid. This will give our cash flow from operating activities before payment of tax. From this, if we deduct, I would say tax paid during the year, that will give us cash flow from operating activity. So this is the only point of difference. However, with respect to investing and financing, it is the same. I'll however touch upon that aspect also for you. So we have something called as our cash book, which will basically have two parts. This part is my receipt, this part is my payments. So on my receipt side, firstly I'll have opening balance and here I'll have closing balance. Here I'll have what you say all the receipts, here I'll have all the payments. What I'll do is I will segregate this specific receipts that I have into three categories, that is operating, investing, financing. Payments into three categories: operating, investing, financing. And my cash flow statement will look something like this. I'll write cash flow from operating activities. How will I arrive at cash flow from operating activities? Receipts minus payments. You get that? Next, I'll identify cash flow from investing activities. I'll write receipts, I'll subtract payments. Similarly, I'll do cash flow from financing activities. Once I do everything, I'll add this to my opening cash, then I'll arrive at my closing cash. You get that? That's how a cash flow statement is basically prepared, or statement of cash flow is basically prepared. However, if it is direct method, we will not be doing receipts minus payment. We'll be starting with net profit and then changing it. So this is just an overview of understanding as to how a statement of cash flow is basically prepared. So right now we're done with how. So let me take you to the last question, when. When is cash flow statement prepared? So cash flow statement is prepared with respect to standalone as well as consolidated financial statements separately, okay? Whenever we prepare financial statements. Whenever we prepare financial statements. Now, if I am preparing my financial statements quarterly, I am supposed to prepare cash flow statement also quarterly. Why? Because the financial statements definition given under section 129 covers the concept of statement of cash flow. So I would have to prepare my statement of cash flow whenever I prepare my financial statements. However, there are certain exceptions given to 1% company and quite a lot of other things. But what we need to note here is our current discussion is with regard to Ind AS, and Ind AS is not applicable to all those small companies. We discussed in the initial part only when we discussed applicability. So this is applicable for all the big companies is what we're discussing. So all the big companies mandatorily should prepare consolidated financial statements or what do you say, statement of cash flow whenever they are supposed to prepare their financial statements. So this is our complete discussion with respect to Ind AS 7, that is statement of cash flow, which is in similar lines with accounting standard 3, which is cash flow statement. So see you all in the next video with one more Ind AS. Till then, stay in the game.